Coming at you on a Tuesday, it is the Vegas Take Live, 101.5 FM, 720 AM K-Dawn. I'm Chris Wynn, in for Brian Shapiro. He's back tomorrow. I'll still be in. It'll be Winning Wednesdays here on the Vegas Take. JD Sharp live in studio. And we're also joined and very happy to have esteemed author and also attorney. He's practiced law for a number of years, and he's like myself and JD, he is I don't know if we call him a Midwest transplant because he's been here for a long time. He's been to the West Coast a long time, right?
Yeah, but I grew up in the Midwest.
He's a Midwest guy like myself and JD. And George Chanos joins us live here in studio to talk, not only talk about his book, but we want to get his perspective on all things politics, given how there's so many dynamic things going on in Washington D.C. and across the country, for that matter, on the political side of things. George, we really appreciate you spending some time on a Tuesday.
I'm grateful to be here.
Wow, it's so many things kind of intersecting right now in the world of politics. You have, of course, the 2020 election is coming up. We're on the verge of the election season, let's put it that way,
right, for
the year. You have, obviously, President Trump and the impeachment process that's about to jump into full gear here on the Senate side of things with the impeachment trial. And then, of course, you have the reaction of the United States and across the world with respect to the United States and Iran. So there's so much going on from political side of things. But you, yourself, I think it's fair for me to say you're a former Republican who now is basically an independent, and there's probably a number of reasons for that. Right. The first question I have for you is this: why are you not a Republican anymore?
It's a fair question, and even though I agree with a lot of what Donald Trump is doing, and I don't agree with, I don't believe that either of the two candidates in the 2016 election had the moral authority to serve as president of the United States. And that's my personal belief.
Okay.
And Hillary Clinton, I would have voted for anyone other than Hillary Clinton.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right, so full disclosure,
Yeah, I
am a Democrat. I'm a
Yeah.
Democratic supporter. I support Hillary Clinton. JD is a Trump supporter.
Yeah,
okay, so you're going to get both sides of perspective.
But
here.
And I support I support
She's
neither.
Not morally.
And I support neither.
Okay, yes, but you said neither one was morally equipped, you think, to serve as president of the United States?
Yeah,
Hillary as well, too.
Yeah, well, I think Hillary.
I understand, but what about Hillary?
I think Hillary's a criminal.
Really?
Yeah.
But she hasn't actually been charged with anything or
That's
convicted of anything.
That's
unfortunate.
That's unfortunate.
I don't know, this is the Democrat speaking over here.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
But I digress. I mean, so,
I'm not just for the record. I'm not a tribalist.
Okay.
I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I've given up on both parties. I think they're dysfunctional. Public confidence in government is at an all-time low. In the 40-year history of the Gallup poll, public confidence in government has never before been measured in the single digits. It is today. The American public thinks more highly of the IRS, hemorrhoids, and witches than they think of their politicians. Okay? And I'm with the American public. I feel the same way. I feel that our politicians on both sides of the aisle have let us down. I feel that the American public deserves better. And that's what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm saying. And, not everybody's going to agree with that because we are a tribalist society. It's in our DNA from the time we roamed the planet. We've been tribalists. So we fall into groups, right? We find our friends form in these groups, our relationships, our business relationships, our social relationships. And it's sometimes tribal blasphemy to talk about things that are negative about your group, right? So in your group, in your circle, nobody criticizes Hillary Clinton, right? In your circle, nobody criticizes Donald Trump, or rarely, right? Or less often.
I would disagree with both.
I criticize Trump quite a bit. I think he makes some incredibly stupid decisions on a consistent basis. I'm tired of him attacking everybody on Twitter that even disagrees with him, which I think is borderline fascism.
Yeah.
I'm tired of him just refusing to admit that he's wrong ever. I think that's ridiculous. But I do like his policies, and I wanted to ask you this, George. Yeah. Are you still a fiscal conservative?
Oh yeah. Okay. I was an Abraham Lincoln Republican, right? So I believe that you don't give a man a fish. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Yeah. What I found disappointing about the Republican Party is they have that philosophy, they share that philosophy, but they're not teaching men to fish. And I think they need to do more of that. And I think, Milton Friedman, right? Republicans ought to identify with Nobel Prize-winning economist at the University of Chicago, Milton Friedman. He won his Nobel Prize for observing a very simple proposition, which is that people operate out of self-interest, right? So I think Republicans need to understand that it is in our self-interest, their self-interest, and the country's self-interest that we can no longer ignore the people that are disenfranchised, that are hopeless, that are, homelessness is gotten out of control. 17.5 million fatherless children in America. 43% of U.S. households are fatherless. Mm-hmm. This is an epidemic. This is not something that we can continue to ignore. And the appeal from the Democrats has always been on the basis of altruism. It's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. You ought to help these people, right? And for whatever reason, that hasn't resonated enough with the other side. And so what I would say is stop appealing on that basis and appeal to Republicans on the basis of their self-interest. Explain to them that, if they want their wife to be able to go to the grocery store safely over the next 10 years, right? If they don't want to see the society break out into civil war, right? Mm-hmm. That they need to address these issues. It's in their self-interest to address these issues, right? So I believe we do need to address these issues. I also applaud what Donald Trump has done with the economy. Stock market all-time high, employment all-time high, especially for minority groups. We've got a technological tsunami on the horizon, okay? The world's going to change radically. Over the next 5 years, the World Economic Forum is predicting major disruption. Over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, it's going to be unbelievable. Okay? And that's what I'm writing about in my book. I mean, Ray Kurzweil, the head of AI for Google, says that artificial intelligence will exceed human intelligence by 2029. That's 10 years away. He says that in an additional 20 years, by the 2040s, right? So 20 to 30 years away, it won't be our equal. It will be 1 billion times greater than human intelligence. Now, that's a level of disruption in 30 years that the human mind can't even fathom. Okay, that's what's on the horizon. That's what's coming.
And right now in this 2020 election, the only candidate that I've heard have this conversation is Andrew Yang.
Yeah,
I'm a big Buttigieg fan. Obviously, I'm a Trump supporter. And Trump has not talked about this.
Yeah,
but Andrew Yang has gone into detail about this. And I've had this question for quite some time. I mean, you've got electronic bartenders. I mean, pretty soon I think that fast food will be 100% electronic. Where are those people who have those jobs right now? Where are they going? What are they going to do?
Guys, the number one job for an American male today is truck driver. 3 million of them. Those jobs are gone.
Yeah.
Chrysler Dahmer was testing Nevada on Nevada highways. They were testing driverless semis. Mm-hmm. They are already doing cross-country trips with driverless semis. Uber drivers, 3.9 million today, 5 million tomorrow. Those jobs are gone. They're going to have driverless vehicles, and Uber's already talking about Uber taxis, flying taxis. Fast food workers, 3.5 million, gone. Cashierless stores. Amazon is rolling out cashierless stores across the country. Automation will replace 50% of the jobs in this country over the next 20 years. And so we have an education system that was built at the turn of the century, in the early 1900s, for the Industrial Revolution, when we went from an agrarian economy to an industrial economy, right? We have not had a major overhaul of our education system. We're not harnessing technology the way we could to educate people. Bernie Sanders talks about educating, everybody for free. Are we going to do that in big brick campuses with 50-foot climbing walls and Olympic swimming pools? Are we going to put guys like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all the great minds on video and have them speaking to these people through a university that they can access on the internet for free and everyone can have access to? Why aren't we doing these types of things to improve our society? Why are we getting, caught up talking about nonsense when there are bigger issues to be dealing with?
George Chanos is joining us here live in studio. He's the former AG, by the way, here in Nevada. I failed to mention that. I'm sorry. But he's also the author of Millennial Samurai, a mindset for the 21st century. I want to get back to the 2020 election,
Sure.
Your thoughts on that. But first on the book, what was the motivation behind it? Because you think about something like this isn't something that flippantly came to you.
No.
This isn't something that where,
No.
I want a project and I'm deciding to write a book.
No.
What is the story behind this?
Okay, so first of all, in 2012, I had a heart attack, and I had a 16-year-old daughter at the time and a 21-year-old nephew. and I started to think about their future. And I started to prepare and plan for their future. So I put my affairs in order. And then I realized, one of the greatest assets that I happen to be the most educated person in my family, right? So what happens when I die and I take all that knowledge with me? So I wanted to somehow download that knowledge. So I began writing a letter to my daughter. And that letter I like to write, and I'm sitting at my laptop, and about a month or two later, I've got 100 pages, and I realize this is not a letter. This is a book, and it ought to be a book, and it has application well beyond my daughter. So that was my first book.
And it becomes an undertaking, right?
Yeah.
That's not just some. That's not just some letter.
No. And it actually became a passion, and it became a new direction for my life. So I wrote the first book, and that was called Seize Your Destiny, A Roadmap to Success. It's available on Amazon. It's only like $10. Everyone should get this for their kids. But when I wrote that, I thought, okay, now I've downloaded my 30-year of working history, my knowledge based on my life, right, what I've encountered. And then I realized, you know what? Her life is actually going to be very different than mine. Her next 30 years is going to be radically different than mine. Let me take a look at that next 30 years. So now you've got, a former AG, 30-year lawyer who's now studying the future, who's now looking at artificial intelligence, advances in genomics, 3D printing, stem cell research, the Internet of Things, cloud computing. How is that all going to affect the life that she's going to live in? What are the opportunities that she's going to encounter? What are the challenges that she's going to encounter? And I decided to create a set of tools for her and for other young people. And that's Millennial Samurai. Millennial Samurai is 182 chapters. They're only 1 to 3 pages each, so they're easily digestible for the short attention span reader. If I were to drop you off
Very smart.
Yeah, thank you. If I were to drop you off in the Amazon rainforest and I were going to give you a duffel bag, what would I put in that duffel bag for your survival, right? There are things that come to mind, right? I'd put water, I'd put a compass, I'd put a knife or a saw. There's all sorts of things I'd put in that duffel bag. Well, Millennial Samurai, if I'm going to drop you off in the middle of the 21st century and you're a young person, this is your duffel bag. This is what you need to have. This is what I believe you need to know to survive and thrive in the 21st century. It's
interesting that you put it that way, because my initial reaction when I saw the book and when I started to look into your background a little bit and do some research, I thought about the book title. I'm thinking this is a guy that's kind of close to my age. We're relatively around the same age, you and I. And he's trying to tell millennials what they have to do to succeed. That was like my initial reaction. Yeah. And obviously, it's something that's very different what you're putting forth here. And it's not in any way trying to tell the young people. No. In America.
It's about adapting to the changing in the evolving world.
Yeah. So they, some of them could say, "Okay, boomer," right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
What's this old guy know about how I can be successful in the world in 2020 and beyond?
Yeah. Right. Okay, old white guy. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. But the first of all, older generations have accumulated knowledge that younger generations don't have. Number one. Yeah. Number two. Here's the concept behind Millennial Samurai. The concept behind Millennial Samurai is not that millennials are somehow needing of my help or that they're somehow disadvantaged. They are the most educated generation in human history. They are the most technologically advanced generation.
No doubt about that.
They're the most globally networked. They are the most ethnically diverse, right? So they have a lot of things going for them. They have a lot of strengths. But they also have been called the entitlement generation. They've been called delusional, right? And the samurai had a fidelity to core values, ancient core values, that have helped not just the boomer generation, but every generation since the dawn of time succeed. Character, courage, commitment, compassion, perseverance, integrity. I mean, these are the fundamental truths that allow for success, right? When you marry the principles of the samurai with the potential of the millennial, you get a millennial samurai. Now, let me tell you why it's important that we educate millennials, okay, and why we as a boomer generation try to impart whatever wisdom we happen to have. And we've made mistakes. We've all, made mistakes. I'm not saying boomers are somehow enlightened by any stretch of the imagination, but we do know things that they don't yet know, just by virtue of experience, right? So here's why we need to do that. Because as humanity encounters this tsunami of technological change over the next 30 years, it's the millennial generation that will be at the tip of the generational spear. They will be the first to encounter these challenges. I will be getting older. I will become a liability. I will be infirm, right? I'm not going to solve the world's problems. Young people are going to solve the world's problems. So if the world wants to solve its problems, they need to enrich and empower young people. And that's what I'm doing. Your listeners today, 40% of them, if they have an 18 to 36-year-old, they're living at home. Their 18 to 36-year-old is living at home, right? They want to be an internet influencer, or they want to be an athlete, or they want to be a rock star, or they want to be what society is showing them, And we all know from our own experience that, success in life, living the American dream, is not sleeping. It's working, right? It's putting forth the effort, right? I've got some guys that are friends of mine that are trying to build a new major internet business, and they're getting about 3 to 4 hours of sleep a day. They're tracking it on their Fitbits. They're literally tracking it on their Fitbits.
How old are they?
They're like maybe 45.
That's rough.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And they, you ask them when they sleep, and they'll say Sunday.
Yeah, so they're a little bit younger than me, and they're
Right.
just going at it full tilt.
Full tilt. And that's
Wow.
that's the American dream. If you want the
it
American
is.
dream, you gotta work relentlessly. There's an intensity, but you also want to have a good life. You want to have a balanced life, right? You want to do something meaningful with your life. So you have all these things that you want to
And
do.
you want to sustain a relationship.
And you wanna have a relationship.
Or have a family.
Which according to the most comprehensive study on human health and happiness out of Harvard, George Valiant, relationships are the number one key. Right? So you want to have that too. So you got to have it all. So how do you have it all? So Millennial Samurai, the book, takes you through step by step how you create the right mindset, what you should be thinking about, what are the issues of the day that are going to confront you, how do you create greater opportunity for yourself, how do you leverage your strengths and mitigate your weaknesses, how do you have a better life. So essentially you've got a guy who formerly advised guys like Sheldon Adelson and other billionaires and was charging $1,000 an hour, now advising young people on what they should do. And if they want to say, okay, boomer, okay, say whatever, then I'm not trying to lead horses to water.
No.
I'm looking for thirsty horses. If somebody wants what I can teach them, I'm here for them. If they don't want it, that's cool. Go on, do what you're doing.
Yeah. George Chanos joining us here live in studio. He is the author of Millennial Samurai, a mindset for the 21st century. Also, he is the former Attorney General here in Nevada.
Would you consider yourself a futurist?
I've been called a futurist, and I hope to be worthy of that title. I'm certainly looking at the future, and if that's what a futurist is, then that's I guess what I am now.
Yeah. And so if you look at millennials right now, especially those in college, there is a growing acceptance of socialism, especially amongst female millennials. Yeah. I think that if automation takes away 20 or 30 million jobs, people have to live.
Oh yeah,
they have and especially with Instagram and where you can go on the internet now and you can see how everybody else is living. If you're looking at your own life and you don't have a job, and let's say you worked at McDonald's and you were making $20, $25. Well, we'll say $15 an hour in California under Bernie Sanders. We'll say something like that. But now you don't have a job because a machine took your job. Socialism might look good to you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, do you think that is going to actually? Because based on the logic that's coming out of this conversation, it seems to me like socialism may explode, and it'll be a lot of it will have to do with the fact that the young millennials as well as those who are losing their jobs to automation.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but student debt exceeds credit card debt. So all of these students have this massive debt. So massive debt combined with unemployment or God forbid, we have a 2008 and we have a downturn in the economy again, right? It's a recipe for disaster.
I agree.
If you throw this stuff all together. So we need planning, right? One of the advantages that the Chinese have is they have long-term planning. One of the advantages that we have is we have creativity, we have flexibility. We're not locked into some set path divined by an oligarchy, but there needs to be more planning. There needs to be we have 340 million people in this country. They are equally divided into two tribes. They think very differently about what are the solutions for the country. I believe that you can't have unfettered capitalism and I believe that you can't have socialism. Neither one of those will work. Okay, communism has failed, socialism has failed, and capitalism eventually will fail. We need a hybrid. We need the economic engine of the capitalist system to provide the essential services for society. You know, Aristotle talks about this in Plato, in politics, right? You will always have more of the poor than you have of the rich, right? And the poor will always want what the rich have, right? So we need to recognize this fundamental situation that we're in.
Well, and I think it can be argued that if let's say Amazon doesn't have to pay employees anymore, and if the trucking companies don't have to pay employees, they're actually going to be making even more money.
Yeah.
And so that disparity will get bigger as these jobs go away because the salaries are going to go down.
I want to chime in on that because look, there are absolutely going to be lost jobs, okay, given the automation and all this is going on. But we also have to take into consideration there will be other jobs created. Yep. It's not like our society is going to go into a downward spiral.
No.
We're not going to be able to create new jobs.
No, you're 100% right. Yeah. And millions of new jobs will be created.
Exactly.
The question is, how are we training people for those new jobs?
Right.
This is true.
Does the current education system, is that system preparing this new generation for those new jobs? Mm-hmm. And the answer is no. So yes, there will be phenomenal. We could harness this technological revolution not to create a dark and dystopian world, but to create a second enlightenment. Yeah. Right? We could go on to an incredibly prosperous and amazing society. So the opportunities, when you talk about a technological tsunami, some people, they get panicky or they get worried or they think, in negative terms. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about living in the greatest period in human history, right? That's how I look at it. I'm embracing it. I want the change. I'm looking forward to the change. I'm just trying to get us ready for the change.
Do you think that these new jobs that'll be created will be kind of sedentary, sitting in front of a computer, controlling robots, or what kind of jobs do you think they'll be?
So that's an interesting question. Ultimately, the efficiencies of automation will cause any job that can be automated to be automated. Right? But who's going to design what these machines do, right? Mm-hmm. Who's going to design the experiences of a virtual reality? That's going to be a human. Humans are going to do all those things that are uniquely human that only humans can do, right? A machine doesn't have empathy, right? A machine, Japan has nursing robots, but ultimately you're going to want humans.
They have nursing robots?
Yeah. They're leading in nursing robots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
George, much great information. I can't believe we're up against it. We're almost at the end of the show. Former Nevada Attorney General George Chanos joining us here live in studio. Just a tremendous author for the Millennial Samurai, a mindset for the 21st century. Some great quotes about you have a true love of learning. You're willing and able to adapt to changing circumstances. You're one who's constantly looking for value and opportunity, especially in failure. George,
can we give away a couple of books? Or
Absolutely.
Can we give away a book on the show?
Yeah, however many you'd like.
Okay.
I want them out there.
Okay.
Yeah. So caller number 3 at 702-257-5396. We're going to give away this tremendous book. It's not even just for millennials. People.
It's for everybody.
Even for anybody.
Absolutely.
Something great for you.
Yeah.
We didn't get a chance to get into about the 2020 election.
Trump wins in 2020.
But you know what? We'll have you back on the show, and we'll get you.
Would you vote for
Trump? We'll get you nailed down on that.
I'm gonna wait today.
Okay.
Today I would.
Okay.
But I'm gonna wait.
Mm-hmm.
I have a personal relationship with Joe Biden. He's a friend. Mm-hmm. I've had lunch with him. I like him. And I think he's a good man. Okay. He's made some mistakes. We've all made some mistakes. He's got his own issues. I have not made a final decision on who I'm going to vote for, but I try to look at every human being and every issue on its merits. I don't buy into the tribalist drumbeat. I make my own decisions. I'm a critical thinker. I look at people. I look at issues, and that's what I think we all should be doing, and that's what I'm teaching people. So that's what I will do, and I will cast my vote for the best person.
That's author and former Nevada Attorney General George Chanos joining us here live in studio. George, we really appreciate you spending some time on it Tuesday.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed this conversation.
Great show here in the Vegas Take. Tomorrow, it gets rolling once again. Thanks to our guest, George Chanos. Also, thanks to our guest, Amber Athey from the Daily Caller, as well as Gerald Gillock, attorney at law here in Las Vegas. Also, Ken Thompson, host of
Hey, by
Sports
the
X
way,
Radio
Ken
here.
Thompson, if you were listening, Ken Thompson has Flores on his show tonight at 9:05 in the second hour. So Ken just texted me that, and I wanted to give him a shout out. So listen to him tonight on Sports X Radio.
Like we say, 21-hour break. We'll be back again tomorrow. It's the Vegas Take coming your way live, 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON, the talk of Las Vegas.